You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Dean. Johnson.
The AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California. Presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AFTERBUZZ TV's The Newsroom After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's The Newsroom After Show.
And there it is. Hello, everyone. Upping is for doing, and we're doing it big here with another AFTERBUZZ After Show for The Newsroom. We are in Season 1, Episode 6. This one's called Bullies. And it was a really, really big episode for Sloan tonight. My name is Kelly, and I am joined by...
I'm Kristin.
I'm Kendra.
And we have a very special guest with us tonight, another big Newsroom fan.
Huge. I am Alicia Minshew.
And you may recognize her from All My Children. And she's got some great projects coming up, so we're going to get into that later. But let's talk about Sloan.
Let's discuss.
Yes.
You guys, honestly, I love her.
She's great.
I love her because she has balls.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
She, especially, I was writing down when she stood up to Charlie and just sort of had that moment of when they were just when they were fighting, and she was, I think she said, "Don't call me ma'am.
Don't call me girl.
No, don't call me girl." And I just, that whole moment, I was like, yeah, go tell him. I loved it. I loved her. I love her spunk.
Well, I think what's so great, because if you're familiar with, Sloan is played by Olivia Munn, and she kind of, this character, we talk about this every week, is like the female characters on this show are really getting kind of smashed in the media. People are talking about how, anti-feminist these characters are.
Right.
And I think this is such a great episode for her because she also gets to bring some of her personal life into this, because I don't know if you guys remember her. She first started out, I think she was a contributor on the Jon Stewart show.
Was she?
And he got a lot of flack for hiring her, and they thought that she was unqualified, and he hired her just based on her looks.
Right.
So she's kind of dealt with this same thing personally in the beginning when her character was when Mackenzie wanted to utilize her character for
her legs.
For her legs.
Yes.
It's the same kind of thing. Not only was she qualified, she's also, super sexy.
Awesome.
And that's the greatest thing that, yes, these characters can be girly girl and have their moments and their ditzy moments, whatever, but everybody does. And I really liked this episode showcasing her character because it showed her strength, and she's not scared, and she is smart.
Yes.
And that's what I loved about it.
And the Japanese.
Yeah,
I mean,
was great.
right?
That was
when she
amazing.
went into it, I'm like, you go, girl. Like you do it. And it was real, and it just made her more human to me, I think. More stronger and just more human.
Absolutely, because it starts out when they're in this boardroom. We don't really know what they're talking about.
Right.
She's on speakerphone with someone just speaking Japanese, and everybody's just kind of like, "What's going on?" And we find out she's having a conversation about the Japanese company TEPCO, and they're talking about a radiation leak that might be happening there in Japan, and like the level of security. So that it's a contact of hers that she's known for years.
Right.
So they're catching up, talking about his daughter being, playing sports and, whatever. So when she finally gets down to it about the reactors and all of that, when everyone's in the room, he gives her, the spokesperson for TEPCO gives her the PC version, like the okay for media version. It's going to, it's leaking. We're working on it. Shouldn't go past level 5.
Right.
She clears the room and utilizes a contact the way any self-respecting journalist would. You try to get your story however you can get it. Right. But she says those words off the record.
Right.
And that's when it becomes an ethical problem. Because we're talking about off the record, and off the record, being a longtime friend of hers, he divulges this is a lot more serious than what he's allowed to say.
Right.
So what does she do with it? She goes to Will and asks for advice.
Right.
What do I do with this?
Right.
And, what do you think about his pep talk? I say that word in quotes because it wasn't necessarily a big pep talk.
Well, it was bad timing because he wasn't in the mood, I think, to give the proper, the PC pep talk.
Right.
And so she kind of ran with that, and I think she got, excited, and we saw what happened.
I didn't mind too much of the pep talk. I mean, it was a little harsh, but I think she needed that kick to go, but then she took it too far. I think that was more of the problem, especially when you have Don in your ear going, don't go rogue on me, and she just turns him off. And that is the worst thing to do when it's your first time out there. And although we saw a little bit of compassion from Don later on, they've been really, I'm a Jim girl.
I know, I like Jim too.
But I kind of liked him a little bit more in this episode. He goes,
I did too.
You got 10 seconds. We've all done this before, but what happens in 10 seconds?
Right, yeah.
And then we saw Charlie go at it, which we hardly ever see.
Right. Well, not like that. We've seen him get a little crazy, but not necessarily to the
I've seen him
staffers.
get crazy with Will. But with her, it was like, that's why I loved when she stood up to him and she was like, don't call me ma'am, and just that whole moment. But when you were talking about Don, again, he was more human tonight, and I kind of was like, I think I like him.
Us too was like, what is going on?
We're finally starting to see this character round out. And I like that too, because I felt the same thing. He, was definitely a little bit more compassionate,
Absolutely.
and he understood what she was doing, I think. But because she doesn't do this type of news, she's never been in that position, and she was dealing with a major story.
Right.
And, all of when it comes to this part of the business, and when you're talking to a contact and you have there's this level of trust that you ethically should not break. Right. It happens, whatever. But, as a publicist, when I'm talking to news reporters and they're asking me questions, and it's really hard to go in circles, and they know that you're going in circles, and they know that you're BSing them, and then they say those, magic words off the record. What can you tell me? And then depending on what your relationship is, and we saw she obviously had a great relationship with this person where he felt comfortable enough to say that, and then she totally threw that out the window. Yeah. And that's a major, major issue for her professionally and personally with this relationship.
Right. I have to say, when they showed Don in the, I guess in the room.
The control room.
And when she started when she started talking Japanese, and he was like, his reaction was genius, because we're all thinking the same thing. We're all like, what is she doing?
Yes.
And it's moments like that where he's funny, and you start to kind of there's something kind of like dickhead but charming about him.
Exactly.
Too. And you can't help but start to kind of like him because there's just something kind of funny about him.
Yeah.
I think.
And his facial expression was the best. His eyes were like popping out of his head.
All of us laughed at the same time because it was a great moment.
So we find out that she the thing that I liked most about it was when she was, going after the translator and said, can you please translate what I'm asking you to say?
Right.
Say it word for word and say exactly what I'm saying now so this person knows you're misrepresenting him.
Right.
And she put the translator on the spot. And, when you're dealing with as a viewer, you're dealing with a language you don't understand, you expect the translator to translate and not put their own spin on things. So there was obviously something that they were trying to cover up. And I think she was taking Will's advice a little bit too literally because she's just not seasoned enough to be able to deal with guests the way that he is.
He does.
So she just, went after it and was like, fine, forget it. And she goes off on her Japanese and then she just... it sounded like she was putting words in his mouth from the average person, even though we find out later that's not.
And that's where it's not really her fault completely, because she didn't ask to be put, as the anchor of that night. She was like, are you sure? She asked so many people, but they were like, yeah, do it.
Yeah.
You're our fourth choice, but just do it.
Right.
And then we find out Will suggested her, and, and she's like, do you really think I could do this? And he's like, no, I have no idea, but we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
And...
But then he gave her that inspiration. Well, I'm calling it an inspirational talk. You could tell when she was walking out the door, when she's like, "I got it," that you knew she was going to do something. You're
right.
Like, okay, she's going to do something in a really big way, and she's going to take what he said and she's going to run with it.
Right, because what he told her is don't let somebody lie on your airtime.
Right.
He says, I see you do that all the time during your show, and you just move on. You let him get away with it. Don't do that.
Right.
You know, and this episode was so great because a lot of the criticisms that the show has been getting is that this news team is always perfect all the time. Can't always be right. And we got to see how they messed up too.
Right.
And everything that they're going after, they kind of have to, you know, eat a piece of humble pie tonight because, you know, they made a huge mistake that they in turn have to fix because it's, you know, reputations. There's 3 reputations at stake here. There's the Japanese man, and his honor and stuff with his country. There's Sloan's journalist reputation of, you know, having contacts and sources. And then there's the station, the network itself. So there's a lot to consider when you decide to go rogue and you really want to get the truth.
Right.
You know, you can be hell bent, but there's a way to go about it.
Right.
And that's still where we're gonna hopefully see her character grow and have to learn from that.
So what do you guys think would have happened had she not had to lie and apologize?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Well, she would have been, you know, fired, I think. Well, or I don't know,
she
because
turned out to be right.
She was
but
right.
They were trying to protect the honor of this man.
And also, I think, and it's a little bit more than that too, because it's also about her. And that's the truth. I mean, I work with journalists all the time, and if there's somebody that you can't trust, I won't answer my phone anymore when they want something from me. And I've had situations like that where, you know, somebody will call me with something and I'll, you know, have to, you know, say, okay, this is what I can tell you that you can go with, but here off the record, I can tell you this and tell you that you can use, you know, this situation later, and you build these relationships. Well, once they you know, that trust is gone. I seriously don't answer my phone anymore. Don't call me for anything.
And if they apologize,
doesn't matter because you can't.
It's still in your brain,
right? And it affects so much more than just you. I mean, she just announced this to the world. And especially in this day and age with internet, it just went everywhere.
Well, and she had no proof to back it up anywhere. And that's the other problem is you just have her calling her out with, well, he said this on the phone and you can't back it up. And Charlie even said we have to look after all the other stories that you did. Were those true as well? And that gets to be a huge problem for a journalist. That's one of the first things that you learn is you don't reveal your sources no matter what.
And you know, and he had a point when Charlie was yelling at her. You're going, you know what? He's right. He's right. Like, how do they know that she hasn't done this about, you know, as much as you want? You're like, yay for Sloan. How do they know that she hasn't done this with something else?
Right.
So they both made such good points. Like they had such strong points of view. So you're almost kind of rooting for them both. You're like, yeah, oh right, yeah,
right.
Yeah, it was great to watch.
Because it does. It begs that question. Like when you're I mean, this is people's lives at stake, and I think that's why she felt so passionate about it.
Right.
But at the same time. You still have an obligation to the people that you're trying to protect. You can't send them into a frenzy when you can't even, you know, even though we find out she did turn out to be right. But that credibility, I mean, it sucks, but that's just kind of the way that it is.
Yeah.
And, you know, and her having to go and lie and apologize with that little technicality about the 2 words sounding the same. Having to swallow your pride for something like that is not easy.
Ooh, that would be rough.
I know. And I think
if you know that you're right, you know,
and you don't want to. Yeah, and I think it showed the depth of the situation when she asked Will, "Do you want me to lie?" You know, with the ACN logo in the corner of the screen, and he said, "Yeah."
I like their relationship very much in this episode too. I like that he's become kind of her Yoda.
Right. Yeah.
She seeks answers from him.
Yes.
Yeah. That's funny.
I like it too. He's like the mentor, sort of,
Mm-hmm.
but with a brotherly, sisterly kind of maybe thing.
Right.
I don't know about that, but I love how there's a like respect for each other.
Absolutely. And
Which
he
is
knows
fun to
that she's
watch.
smart, and he knows that she has potential, and he knows that he might have scared her a little bit into doing what she did.
Right.
And I think that, you know, he is aware of that, hence the reason why he has to suck it up too and say, yes, unfortunately, in this instance, you know, I need you to do this because it takes care of so many things all at once.
Yeah, just
one little mistake, just you're fluent in Japanese, but maybe you haven't spoken it in a while, you know, and as a young, especially as a female, with what she's trying to do, and we saw her passion for it. Don't call me girl.
Right.
She doesn't want to have to suck this up and say I was wrong.
Right.
Even because she absolutely wasn't. She just went about it in the wrong way.
Right. Right.
And that's the tough lesson, is to be able to know that you're right, but know that you did it. You took the wrong steps.
Right.
That's hard.
It was a cool moment though when you could tell she was like filled with emotion when she said, "You're asking me to lie," and then he just took a pause and said, "Yes."
Yeah.
It was just because earlier in the show he was saying, "Don't lie," and I always see you. You're lying, and now he's just like, "Yes." It was just such a cool moment, of between the two of them. Just that brief moment, you're like, wow.
Because he had to admit, we messed up. This is our mess up. It's not just you. And he tells her, I'll always be standing beside you and in front of you. It's not you messed up, you have to do this. He says we.
Right.
And again, that goes back to what we saw in the last episode too, where he really is protective of his staff. And he doesn't really like it when people are afraid of him because that's not his intention.
Right.
He just is on a mission to civilize everybody.
As he said at the very beginning. Yeah. He's actually nurturing. He's actually more nurturing than you
do that and single-handedly fix the internet.
I was going to say
that's
in this episode.
Yes, speaking of the internet, one of the greatest things that we have here at AfterBuzz TV is we give you the option to be able to shop online through our website. So you can go to AfterBuzzTV.com and click on our Amazon banner and do all of your online shopping through our site. It doesn't cost you anything extra. It's just one extra click, and we get a little kickback from it, so that way that AfterBuzz is here to be able to continue to do these great after shows that we are able to do here. So please go to AfterBuzzTV.com, click on the Amazon banner, and help us out. We really appreciate it. So that brings us in to Will and his, he's getting death threats.
I know.
We really did. I mean, he has been a strong character, but in this episode, we really saw that bully come out in him. And that was it was really hard for me to watch that whole exchange with Rick Santorum's advisor. It was
emotional.
It was very emotional.
It was emotional. Who's the guy? Do you know the guy who played Rick Santorum's?
Who played
the actor?
Wall,
yeah, the actor or the character. What was the character's name? Or
Shelton?
Was that it?
Excuse me.
I don't know, but
he
was amazing.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
Yes.
He held his ground against Will. And for once, I found, I'm always rooting for Will, but for once in that moment, I was kind of rooting for the other guy towards the end to just speak his mind. And I was like, listen to him when he said, no, you let me talk.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, just because you wanted to hear his point of view.
Right, exactly.
And he said it, that actor was, just kudos to him, because I was just sitting there, just my jaw was on the floor, and I was like he moved me emotionally.
Yeah, he was really great.
I was just going, this guy is brilliant. I mean, yay for Aaron Sorkin, first of all. I mean, the writing's awesome, but it was such a great moment for him to put Will in his place in that, just in that second. And whoever the actor was, we'll find out.
Yeah,
was awesome.
Yeah, it felt real. Like
it
wasn't like
that was coming from. It seemed like it was coming from a very. I did not feel like I was watching an actor.
No,
I felt like I was watching real footage, and that's why it disturbed me. I was like, oh my God, he's right. Yeah.
Because sometimes they use real footage too, and it just did not skip a beat.
No. It was great.
And especially what they were discussing is it's a really, really hot and sensitive topic, because I understand where Will was coming from on his line of questioning, because, from where he's sitting, how can you get 100% behind someone that doesn't have respect for who you are?
Of course.
Because, the whole topic of gay marriage is so sensitive. And this is set back in 2011.
Right.
The beginning of 2011. And it just continues, even more.
Yeah.
It's the fact that it is still such a sensitive topic is, beyond me.
Crazy.
But it's just, the way that he, even when he comes back and is like, you will listen to me, and the way that he ends that, this man is a teacher at Temple University, and he's like, does Rick Santorum believe that you are fit to be a teacher? And he says no.
I know.
And that's terrible. He's 100% behind this man that doesn't even respect him as a person.
No,
that I think is why he was bullying down. How can you do it? How can you do it? How can you be behind somebody that doesn't even let you be you?
Right.
How do you justify that?
Right.
And that's what was. It was just amazing how intense that whole exchange was.
I feel like whenever Will is bullying, it's always for the it's for the best reason in the world, and he's always right, and he's always making a point for the equality of people and humans, and you're always like, yeah, like he says what everybody else is thinking. So in a sense, he's bullying because he's just trying to fight for people's rights. But in this instance, it was just great to kind of see the other guy counter that.
Right, and it really made me kind of tear up a little bit when that man said to him, you know, how dare you tell me what I'm supposed to need help? You know, I don't need your help. I don't need your protection. Who are you to tell me what I am supposed to feel bad for, fight for, you know, whatever for? You don't have the right to do that as a person.
And that's, he said to, you know, just characterize me in 2 specific categories. There's a lot more, and that's why I back this particular candidate, because I'm not just, you know, gay and black. I'm a lot more than that.
And he, you know, and he says, out of all the candidates, you know, this is my best choice. And that makes you have to stop and think. And I think that that line, when he said that, for me, I thought was such fantastic writing, because it makes you stop and think. If this character is, you know, black and gay and is standing 100% behind a politician, a representative that's running for president, that completely doesn't think that he's fit to be, you know, he's less of a man, and that's the best that we have in the pool. What does that have to say about our society?
Scary.
It's very scary.
Very scary.
And that doesn't matter what political party that you're with. If that is the best that we have, wow.
I think that's maybe some of the points of his writing, is to sort of show this is what we're dealing with. Well, look at this. Wowzers.
It's very scary. Hence the reason Will needs to go to therapy.
You know what? Good for Will, because I think we could all, I mean, anybody in Will's position needs therapy a few times a week, and then some.
Well, it's good that he's gone back. It was, what, 4 years?
He's still paying for it. Well, he doesn't, but he has somebody who
his business partner, or his business advisor.
Right.
But I like Dave Krumholtz anyway, the actor that plays the doctor.
Me too.
I think he's funny.
He is funny.
But the way that he kind of tricks him into having a session, I thought was great.
Yes.
He just dangles that prescription.
And gets him to just open up.
I think Will kind of got, though, that he was being tricked. He goes, how many times have you watched Good Will Hunting?
Yeah.
He knew, but he wanted to talk.
Yeah.
Right.
He needed somebody to push him, but make him feel like it's his idea.
Right.
Exactly.
And we learned a lot about Will's background in this episode.
First time.
You know, for the first time we find out that he came from an abusive family.
Alcoholic father.
And he had to start protecting his family in 5th grade. That's what, 10?
1 brother, 2 sisters, and his mom.
Yeah, that's, you know, and I think that, you know, builds up for his protective, but also his harshness.
Right.
And why he's not always so rosy and sweet and nice is because he didn't necessarily have, you know, any kind of role model or anything like that. And I think that might be one of the reasons why he fights so hard for the truth, because he probably had to watch so many, you know, lies and misrepresentations in his house of why things were happening the way that they were.
And maybe why he covers up so much too, just hiding his feelings with witty sarcasm, because that's defensive. Just that's a way to protect yourself, is to just sort of hide with the witty sarcasm, hide how you're feeling, because you really have so much going on. You just have to hide it with wittiness and humor, and that's definitely opens up your eyes to who his character is. Makes you feel for him more.
Yeah,
of course.
it's, you know, it's, and I like how, and Aaron Sorkin always does this, where he puts you in the present and takes you back.
Yes.
And it's a little bit confusing in the beginning, but
like,
it's so,
it's great.
You know, so Social Network, so everything.
Completely.
You know, where it goes back and forth.
At the bottom. So.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right. You're like, oh, wait, he's in the office. Oh, wait. We're going back to that again. Oh, wait, did that just happen?
Yeah, with Terry Crews.
Yes.
The bodyguard.
Yeah, the bodyguard. I was like, didn't we just see him?
I know. I was like, did we miss an episode?
Yeah.
But no.
His name was Lenny, right?
Or Lonnie?
Lonnie Church.
Yeah, Lonnie.
Right.
Yeah.
I happen to love him as well.
Yeah.
Oh, he's awesome, and their chemistry together is great.
Yeah.
And so, you know, in true Aaron Sorkin style, we're jumping back and forth, and you know, but he always explains. That's one thing I do like, is he goes into a thing and then he takes you back visually to explain what he's talking about, so you get to see what went on.
So you're never lost. That's the thing. Like, even though there's so much going on and there's just so many people and things and quick talking and banter, I feel like you're never lost. You may be lost for a second, but then you catch up, and then you know everything that happened because he covers his ground.
Exactly.
And then you're left with for me, I'm left with a fulfilled feeling of like, I know everything that happened and it was awesome.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So we find out that Will has this thing that he's implemented into his news broadcast where he's reading fan comments on air.
Right.
And the ones that he reads, the screen names are really funny. Lollipop, Lollipop, and Surrender Dorothy. Was that the second one?
Yes.
And, the comments, he's not really happy with, the type of comments that he's getting. So he wants to find out if there's a way to restrict them. He wants to know your name, your age, your address, your education. He wants to know it all. So they, so they implement this new screening process on his site to leave comments. And, 3 days in, somebody's either hacked into it or, he's got a real live death threat going on. So it's, the network assigns him a bodyguard. And that's where we get to meet Lonnie. Lonnie comes in and is like, I know you like being the boss, but not anymore. Sorry.
I love when they throw in characters like that. Then you just want to see more of them. You want to see their interaction with Will. What did he say? Go read Vegan Times or something like that. Just those little comments are just like very Sorkin.
Yeah.
Right?
Or he's like, I'm single. What about a date? He goes, oh, I'm sorry. It's a little too soon.
Yeah.
But now Will has to have this person follow him around. And that actually might help with some of the stuff that they've had to go through with Nina. They got a bodyguard there as well. Maybe it'll...
Oh, right, with some of the tabloid, the TMI stories.
That's right. I had to think about that for a second.
The TMI stories that are, so, and, that also brings up the fact that they want to be ahead of this whole TMI situation because they know that it's their own network that's doing this on purpose.
Right.
So they find this old HR claim that someone filed on behalf of Maggie because she, Will yelled at her.
Right.
Sweet Maggie.
Oh, Maggie.
LOL.
Oh,
That was right. Georgia. It's like, it doesn't matter.
And we find out that, it wasn't necessarily in a malicious way. He got frustrated because she made 2 really big mistakes.
And they were big.
And they were really big. They were really big. Yeah. So, we find all that out. So now they have the staff kind of digging into Will's past to see if there's, if they can jump ahead of this and if there's anything, that they can find out first to prepare them for these TMI stories. And then we have where he was offered a late night talk show from Fox in 2006. And it, went as far as a deal memo. And, any of you, if you're familiar with the way entertainment contracts go or anything, there's a huge, long process when somebody's offered a job. So by the time you get to a deal memo, it's pretty serious. It's almost done.
The deal memo is like right before you actually
sign the contract. But you're putting in what you want, what they want. You're coming to terms and everything, and you're almost done.
Almost there.
So it's almost there. And at that point, we find out he was still with Mackenzie. They were still together at that time. She was having her fling, but he didn't know about it yet.
Right.
Right. But he was planning to, because this job was in Los Angeles. So, of course, he has a comeback for that. She finds out, she storms into his office and is making a case that he never had any intention of marrying her, and they were deceiving each other at the same time. And then he pulls out this ring.
I knew he was going to get a ring. I knew he was going to ring. By the way, as she was talking, I saw him reaching for a key. I'm like, he's getting a ring.
Absolutely.
All right. And I knew it was going to be a Tiffany's ring, too. Oh, really? That's how you got to do it. Right?
It has to. Yeah.
Will has to. Will would do that. He would have a Tiffany's ring, right?
But the interesting thing about that is that from the beginning, I really thought he just had that.
Oh,
I was a little suspicious. It was a few years. Is he still keeping that really expensive ring in a top drawer at the newsroom? I don't know.
Probably looks
I thought
at it
there was a
every day.
key. Didn't he use a key?
Well, he used a key. It was a locked drawer. But you got to think too. He's still right, but he's still harboring, all of these feelings. He's still, which is obvious because we find out that he didn't have that ring. He actually went and bought it like that day, or had somebody buy it for him in preparation for this conversation that he's going to have. So obviously, he's still not all. He's not,
it's a little off.
not
he
at
rips
all.
up the receipt. He's like, I'm going to return it, and then he rips that up at the end and still doesn't tell his therapist that he did that. So maybe we'll see that ring again.
Maybe.
It's like moonlighting. You want to see them together.
Yeah. Moonlighting. I love moonlighting.
I had to bring that up because
Bruce Willis.
there's some moonlighting moments where you wanted him and Sybil Shepherd to be together, right? I feel like Will and Mac have that. The moments where you're like, you want them to be together. They have that thing.
I know.
They have that thing.
But
Darn
we'll
it.
see.
Well, it's still early on. We still have some
And
episodes left.
he's so not over this at all.
No.
And I think in his mind somewhere in there, I think he's forgiven. He understands what she did after she explained it. He doesn't like it, but I think I think he gets it.
Yeah.
Well, he told the therapist, he goes, and don't tell me that I need to be over this because you don't know what it's like in my head. I actually really like that because sometimes other people don't get what may look like it's not that hard for some people. If that was the love of his life,
Right.
Yeah.
and he has to see her every single day, he can't get over it if she's around.
Every day
Yeah.
in his office, right there.
Right,
they
but
have to
it's
be
not
close,
like they had
too.
just broken
Right,
up,
right.
though. They broke up, was it 3 years ago before she
He's
came back in
still-
her, So he's been harboring this
Yeah.
for, all of these years, and I think it's just fresh again.
Right.
Since she's
As
come
soon as
back.
he sees her, it's almost like it brings everything back. And then she's so utterly charming.
Yes.
Isn't she the most I think she's just, obviously as an actor, but just the character, she's so lovable. And it's apparent when he watches her, he almost gets a kick out of her. Some of these things that she says, even in spite of himself, he's got to enjoy her, on some
Absolutely.
level, because she's just so cute.
And I think
charming.
it brings back why he fell in love with her in the first
Right,
place.
right. Yeah.
Which is, that in itself has got to be so challenging, especially because she is so smart and, great at what she does. And
Right.
they're such a good team together.
Right.
That it's unfortunate that, there's this whole kind of thing in between them.
That's what makes it interesting. Though,
Yeah.
right?
He still calls her his partner
Yeah.
to his therapist. So
Yeah. So, he actually sat for an hour and talked it all out with his therapist, which was great. He talked about how bad he felt with the whole, bullying when he bullied, the representative, and he felt bad about that. He felt bad about what happened with Sloan. He took responsibility for that because he was in a bad mood and felt that if he hadn't been,
He hadn't said that to her, she wouldn't have taken what he said and run with it. It's funny how one person says something and it can affect a bazillion people, right?
Yeah.
Like somebody says something and somebody else acts a certain way, and then it affects this person, and it's such a trickle-down effect. It's interesting.
Yeah, and so we saw a little bit more of a human side to him too, which we've been seeing gradually in every episode, more and more how he's, we know that he does care what people think. He doesn't want people to be afraid of him.
Right.
And, I definitely can relate to something like that because sometimes when you're in a business where you have to be kind of harsh and straightforward, it's very easy to come across as scary and like a bully and things like that, even if that's not your intention.
Right.
So it's really kind of hard to be able to make your point in such a way when you want to be taken seriously and not have, to try to find that,
You don't
balance.
want someone to think, oh, this person's a brat or a
Right.
bully or whatever. You want to do your job, but yet you don't want people to dislike you or think you're something that you're not.
Right, to have a misrepresentation. It's like,
Right.
dislike me for what I am, but not for what I'm not.
Not for what I'm not, exactly.
You
Yeah, you
know?
can dislike certain things about me, but I'm not a bully, and I'm
Yes,
not a bitch.
and I'm not this.
Right.
If you want to dislike me for the things that I really am,
Right,
what I really do.
Right.
Don't make stuff up.
That's good. That's good.
So please go to iTunes. Tell us what you think about this whole situation with Will and Mackenzie. I know we talk about this every week, but what do you think about the ring? Did you really think he had it? Did you think that what did you think about him going out to buy it? Because normal people do that, right?
Yeah.
To make their story.
Yeah.
So please go to iTunes, download our podcast. It's free. Rate and comment. It really helps us out. We like to know what you guys think of the show. Thank you so much to everyone who's already left comments about the show. It's really great. It helps us. And also, Apple has come up with a new podcast app, which will let you, it's free. You download it on your iPad or your iPhone, and it organizes all of your podcasts for you, which is great because if you like to watch multiple, podcast shows, especially, we have tons of great ones here, it organizes them all for you, and it's all for free. So please go and do that when you have a chance and tell your friends because because we're number 1 this week and we want to stay that way. So thank you. Yes, it's exciting.
Yeah, girls.
Well, thanks to all the people who listen. And
Yes.
It's always nice to, I feel like after a show, to hear what other people say too. You feel
Yeah.
like you're watching with somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Fun. This is my first time like doing something like this.
Oh, really?
Not in my living room. And I love it because you can really, you're right there and like really talking about it. And it's when I'm done with the show, you know, I'm with my husband and my child who's asleep, and I'm like, oh my God, what about that moment with, you know? And you know, after a while, it's, you know, it's nice to talk to your husband, but it's nice to talk with a group of people who are so into it and who get it. And I love that.
No,
I mean, I
thank
love
you.
you, honey. It's great to talk to you. It's great to talk to you, but it's nice to talk to the girls too and get, you know, a nice woman point of view too.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so much fun for us too, is because we come fresh off of watching it, so everything's right in
in
your
our
head.
brain.
Yeah, and it's so great, and we, you know, we like for people to get involved too and let us know, you know, how we're doing, if there's anything that we missed, because there's so many things, and especially the way that Aaron Sorkin writes and the way that this show is done and directed, you have to keep looking around constantly.
You can't miss a beat.
No,
Yeah.
you have to pay attention. You have to, you know, see the whole screen, because if you're just focusing on the kid, you miss what's in the background.
Yeah, because somebody else is doing something. While someone's talking, someone's doing something, and you're oh, what's he doing back there? And then later on, usually it's significant. Like,
Right.
Later on, usually it means something.
Absolutely.
It's never just for the hell of it.
No,
I don't think not with
no.
him.
Yeah. So, you know, and we get back into these relationships, and as, you know, you guys talked about earlier, we see a more like human side to Don tonight. And, you know, I think he's, you know, he shows that he's getting pretty insecure about, you know, Maggie and Jim's relationship. He feels like he's losing her. And he goes to Sloan, you know, the worst person.
Yeah. Out of everybody in that office,
Right.
he should have gone up to Neil or Mackenzie.
Yes.
I
Even
think-
Will, I think,
Right.
probably
Right.
recognized
Right.
it.
I think he was ready to fire off that question at anyone who was around him at that moment.
He looked like
Because
he was
just-
going to explode.
Yeah, he was just like, so am I losing her? You know? Just
Yeah.
like, what?
Well, when he walked in, what did she say? Oh, if you're here to make me feel better, he's like, I'm not.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh boy, he's going to be a dick. And then boom. Then what he says? Am I losing? What does he say?
Am I losing Maggie?
Am I losing Maggie?
To
And
Jim.
then she's like, yeah, what?
Yeah.
And her reaction was genius because she was so taken aback. Like, oh, here's this guy, my big producer, who was yelling in my ear, and all of a sudden he's vulnerable.
Right.
It's the first time you kind of see him vulnerable. I mean, not the first time, but where he really expresses it to somebody else.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, yeah.
And he asks, "Are you a good person that would, you know something like this?" And she says, "No."
No. How honest are these people? I love it.
Yes.
Right? It's great.
Well, and that was one of the things too that people had criticized the show about, is that everybody always says what's on their mind. How realistic is that? Well, I would love a place where people did that. I mean, that's what makes it so fantastic. That's one of the reasons why I really do like the show.
Yes.
Because they do say, whether right or wrong, what they're thinking
And
without
how
all the
smart
BS.
they all are. They're all, everyone says, oh, no one's that smart. But you know what? I also feel if you're in that industry, you damn well better be smart.
Right.
Exactly. You
So
have to
I
be.
believe that the people who work at those places are way smarter than me.
Well, and they even it
have
out
to
with
be.
their, Mackenzie's smart, but she messes up an email. Or I like the fact actually that Sloan today, she's super smart. She can she can speak Japanese and she knows all the finance stuff. But then the big security guy goes in there and she goes, I just want to touch his face.
Yes. Right. So it makes them very human and not so like robots. They're smart, but yet they have a human side to them.
Or I liked Maggie today, where Jim goes to her, how are you even here with all of the stuff that she's messed up? And then you just see her be goofy, like, I dodged bullet.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Well, and Maggie's one who doesn't say everything that's on her mind. She keeps some of it to herself. Like, she can't admit her feelings necessarily for Jim in the office.
That's
She
true.
has to
Yeah.
her, to other people. But.
Yeah, she's the most insecure character out of all of them, I think.
Yeah.
She's, because even Neil runs around the office screaming about Bigfoot. So, people are not.
Don't you love Neil?
I do. I do.
I just love him. He's just the best.
No,
funny.
the inner office dynamic of everyone, I think, is really good. And although it's a little bit exaggerated, I think for the most part it's pretty relatable. You're around the same people for countless hours every day.
Right.
How can you not? You can't be serious and on point and textbook all the time. You just can't. That would just drive anybody crazy.
You have to have that humor, and that's what I love is that in the middle of a serious moment, someone's saying something and then someone will say, I don't know. I was trying to think of what Max said about the hound dogs, the ears.
That they use them for scent
that was really,
while they're
that was
hunting.
random and out of the blue. She just threw it out there, and then they continued talking.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's
Nobody
almost like
acknowledged.
no one acknowledged it. I was like, I like that.
Yeah.
It's those moments that, I mean, they happen in life too, where people say random things and you're like, what?
Right.
What? And I love how they have that on the show, the moments of the humor in the middle of the craziness, the seriousness. There's those like the bullets moment, you know. I love that.
Yeah, no, it's great.
And the Sloan did something, the sound effect. She couldn't
Oh,
explain
yes.
Oh, yeah, what did she do?
Because she was asking for,
She's
yes,
like, I'm not asking for your help because whenever you help, it's like,
an explosion.
Right.
and Mackenzie's like,
that was-
okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Right.
Fair. Yeah.
They have
fair
a very,
enough.
I like the relationship also now between Sloan and Mackenzie.
They have a good
Yeah.
banter.
They have a great girl banter, and they're very different, and they get that, and they acknowledge it, and it's kind of fun.
Yeah, they understand each other in a very good, like, cool way, I
Yeah,
think, which is
yeah.
great. Because
Yeah.
it's not very easy when you're, you know,
To
around, especially around a lot of women, when you're all like hungry and successful and like all of that. Sometimes
Strong.
those strong personalities
Yeah,
can
oh,
kind
I'm
of,
sure.
you know, but theirs seem to mesh pretty well, and it's
Yeah,
fun. It's
it
fun
is
to watch them together.
And everyone to me becomes more, I keep saying this, but more human. And I guess more likable. You know, some people will start out strong and you think that they're, you know, they're non-emotional. And now you see that everyone's vulnerabilities. You're starting to see everyone's vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Like Dawn and Sloan. And I like that.
Exactly.
No, that's great. Well, let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we can talk a little bit more about you.
Oh, goodness.
and
It's so
what
boring compared to
you've
this.
got going on, and then we'll get into a little bit of news and gossip and talk about what we think is going to happen next week.
Cool.
Hey there, good buddies. The handle's Woolly Bear. I'm a truck driving man, but I'm not that old school kind of truck driving man, no. I like to listen to podcasts while I'm driving through these great United States of ours. And my favorite podcasts in the world are from AFTERBUZZ TV. And why? Because AFTERBUZZ TV is like a post-game wrap-up show for all your favorite TV shows, like Jersey Shore, Dancing with the Stars, Mad Men, and a whole truckload more. I like listening to my Gossip Girl podcast, catching up with all my fellow fans and getting all the latest news and gossip. No, I got some strong opinions. And AFTERBUZZ TV lets me share those opinions with thousands of other listeners. Woo-wee, what a feeling. I used to doze off on those lonely stretches of road. And don't worry, I got the cruise control. But now I'm wide awake and listening to all the AFTERBUZZ TV goodness. Check them out, give them a holler, and tell them the old Woolly Bear sent you.
Oh, that Woolly Bear. We love him.
I love the Woolly Bear.
So please tell us what's going on with you and
kids,
your life.
kids. Well, first of all, just on a personal level, I'm getting ready to move to New York City.
Ooh.
I'm going to be bi-coastal.
Very
So,
nice.
yes, my husband owns restaurants in New York. So as an actor, you know, you can be in LA or New York. So we're going to be a bi-coastal family. We're going to be based in New York for now. So we're getting ready to move in a month. So when I watch Newsroom and I see, you know, outside of New York, I'm like, that's where I'm going to be. It pains me to leave beautiful, sunny LA, I have to say. But I love New York, so I think I'll have the best of both worlds.
That's so great. I love New York.
It's a great city. I mean, they're both great cities. They're very different. And if you can be bi-coastal and live both, how lucky.
Exactly.
So
No, that's
I'm very
great.
blessed, very, very blessed and excited. So, yeah, so it's actually been 1 year since all my children has left us.
Oh, I can't believe it.
Almost, wait, what is it? Is it July? The end of July. Okay,
Yeah.
so not a year yet, like 11 months. And so since then, about 2 months ago, I got to do this beautiful film. And it's actually quite sad. I play a cancer patient, so I have to take all of this hair and wrap it up in a scarf. And it was based on a true story, and we shot it in New Jersey. I just wrapped it 2 months ago, a month and a half ago. It's called Lies I Told My Little Sister, and it's a story about sisters, and one of them dies. That would be my character. But it's actually an uplifting story about this woman who died of cancer and tried to uplift her family about her disease, and she didn't want them to mourn her. She wanted them to celebrate her. So they had me in colorful scarves and colorful clothes, and all the way up until my character died, they had her uplifting her family, saying, you know what, let's celebrate my life. Let's go live life. Let's have a drink. It was such a great character to play. Completely the opposite of all my children. I mean, you know, I'm you know, with the makeup and the hair, I'm on the soap. This was stripped down, no hair, real, and it was an honor to play this character because it was based on a real woman.
Oh, that's
So
fantastic.
it was great. You know, it was an independent film. Who knows what happens with these? It could go to film festivals. It could go to the theaters. It could be on TV. It's kind of a crapshoot, but it was such a great project. So I was really happy to.
Well, that's
to
great.
be a part of it. Yeah.
Well, do you have a website and things where people can
I
go and kind of
do.
check out and
I
see what's
do.
going on
well,
with you?
it's aliciaminshew.com. Very simple. And then I'm on Twitter. I think I'm Alicia. What is that underscore? Yeah, I'm like, what's that little line? underscore Minshew. So I just joined Twitter. I would say about 2 months ago, something like that. 2 to 3 months ago.
How do you like it?
I kind of love it.
It's so addicting, isn't
I
it?
thought it for a long time. I was like, oh, yeah, I just, I have a 2-year-old too. So, I'm, mommy a lot. And I'm like, I don't have time. But now I'm like, hold on, I got change her diaper. I got to send a tweet. So in between changing diapers, I'm sending tweets, and I love it.
Yeah.
So I just started following you guys on Twitter.
Oh, great! We'll make sure to tweet it out for everyone too.
I'll
for
tweet
all
it
of
out.
us. Yeah.
I'm going to tweet about you chicks.
Yes, and we're
Yeah.
going to tweet about you. But that's fantastic. Keep us posted on everything that's going on with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having this is so fun. What a fun thing. I could watch Newsroom with you girls every Sunday. This is great. Come on.
Yeah,
come on. I'm usually wearing my pajamas and I'm eating a bowl of cereal, so it's a little different. But yeah, I'll come back. It'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we lose you to the Big Apple.
Oh God. I can just fly out here.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into some quick news and gossip. I just have a couple of things I want to talk about.
TV News.
So I was reading this article about how HBO has been promoting Newsroom with out of context quotes, and I personally think that it is so genius of HBO's advertising department because as we talk about every week, the show has been journalists are attacking it. It's been getting attacked all the time, and one of the things that they've been putting ads in like Variety and the Hollywood Reporter, these big full page print ads, and one of the quotes that they used was they quoted the New York Times as saying, "Wit, sophistication, and manic energy, ... a magical way with words, ... a lot of charm," which is fantastic, but the original quote from the reviewer was actually a critical one. And she also wrote, "At its worst, the show chokes on its own sanctimony and suffers from the same flaw that it decries on real cable shows on MSNBC or Fox News." She also wrote that Sorkin structured the drama the way that he did was probably a mistake. So it wasn't even a good review, but they pulled out, which is very technical because journalists do that all the time to their subject, to their interview all the time. Take everything out of context to build their headlines, do their stories. So on the part of HBO, I thought that this was genius. And there are some other ones that they did I thought was really, really funny. So if you have a chance, look that up because it's really funny. It's really funny. I think it's genius.
Just take the good stuff and
take the good stuff and attribute it to all these major, which they actually said it, so they're not lying.
They're not lying.
And then it sparks more debate, and we talk more about the show.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys heard that the CNN chief Jim Walton is resigning from his post at CNN at the end of the year. And as I'm reading this article I read in the LA Times, it's saying that they feel like he's been doing this for 10 years and they want to take the news in a more in a different direction where they're talking more truth rather than kind of propaganda and going for ratings, which I just find very interesting in the wake of the show because and some of the comments on this article were like, oh, are they trying to take cues from the Newsroom, because they he even kind of said when he was announcing that, so it's pretty interesting.
It's almost like the Newsroom is affecting real stations and the way people really do things.
Well, I think that's why too some of the journalists are getting so up in arms about things is because if you guys remember recently, unfortunately, that whole tragic thing that happened in Aurora, and the journalist that went on air and and accused him of being part of the Tea Party when it was somebody that had the same name but was a completely different person. And it just goes back to the mistakes that without doing your research and trying to get everybody in an uproar, and the way that these journalists sometimes do to get more people to watch your network versus another, and you get into that whole ratings thing. So I think this really does make people stop and think about
Absolutely.
what information that they're giving out to the public. Because that, you know,
Oof, I
just
could never be a journalist. I'd be too afraid I would trip up and just lie.
I know.
Not even on purpose, but just like say the wrong thing. I mean, so many people depend on it. So, yay for journalists.
Yeah,
I must
no,
say.
it definitely is a tough gig. And, you know, anybody that, you know, is fortunate enough to be able to do that and have a great
course.
career in it, you know, is definitely doing something right.
Yeah.
And a lot of it isn't necessarily their fault, too, because as we see on this, there's so many people that make up, you know, what goes on the air.
Right,
So there's a
right.
lot of different factors, and you kind of get to see all the different things that have to be taken into account before you actually get the information, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, this show definitely opens my eyes to the news, doesn't it? Like
does.
just what goes on behind the scenes.
Well, and I was watching a promo on HBO, and it had all of the actors from the newsroom, and they were talking about how different news is today versus the way it was even maybe 5 years ago. Because now, following people on the street and figuring out where they went to breakfast and what they had for lunch and who's having whose baby and all of that
Right.
is now considered news. But by the mere definition of what news is supposed to be something that you need to know, not
Right.
something that you want to know. And now that whole line is gotten blurred. And
Right.
you know, Dev Patel said, you know, with all of his newfound fame, he finds it so interesting that the things that people want to know, like how is that new, you know?
That was brought up in the show too, with Will speaking to the TMI
Right.
woman, you know, saying you're comparing us, or you know,
Yeah.
we're journalists. Like,
Well, it's-
Right.
Yeah, and that's funny too that it crosses, like, it makes sense for a TMI show, but you go on MSNBC and they're talking about Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson,
Right. Yes.
or
It's so
CNN.
very true.
Why
Yes.
do people who watch that need to know? People who watch, you know, E or Access Hollywood, that makes sense to
that
me.
makes sense too. No, there have been times where I turn on morning shows
Yeah.
and I'm like, wait, what?
Because- Yes.
This is the Kardashians. I mean,
Or you see it on the bottom roll of CNN.
oh yes,
You know?
yes, alert.
Yes.
So and so just changed her hair color. I'm like, what?
And this is supposed to be our hardcore news station,
Yeah.
so that
It's
the whole
definitely different.
entertainment,
and
or
you
you
used
know,
to say, "Oh, it's a slow day in the newsroom," but now it's like, no, that's hard.
That's
to
what
do.
sells.
Right.
it's
It does
crazy.
sell. Yeah, it's true.
Well, let's get into some predictions and figure out what we think is going to happen
And
next.
now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
So we'll let our guests go first.
God, the
The hot seat.
Well, I saw the preview.
But what do you? Okay, from seeing what you saw, what do you think? If you
From-
could, you know, just
From the preview. Oh, sweet Jesus. Well, something's going down. First of all, they're about to face something that is huge that's going to affect all of them there in the newsroom, and which we were talking about. Maybe it was something about Bin Laden or them finding him, because it was something that happened in either April or May, correct? So, and I just think something big is going to happen like that. That's just going to affect all of them in a huge way. But in terms of relationships, I'm trying to remember what else I saw.
well, what do you think is going to happen, just based on what you know? This, 6 episodes in.
Oh gosh, I think ultimately, for instance, I think Margaret's going to end up with Jim somewhere down the road. I think that Will is going to go back to his doctor, and I think seeing his, I feel like he gets something out of seeing that guy, and I feel like it's not the last time we're going to see him with his therapist, because it's a really interesting relationship, and he gets sleeping pills too.
Yeah.
So there's that, and maybe Sloan, I think, will have a newfound respect from some people, from Will, for standing up like the way that she did. So. Yeah, and then something big's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you think, Kendra?
I'm gonna piggyback off of the seeing the therapist thing,
Yeah.
and I think that is gonna lead to Will and Mackenzie possibly reuniting, or at least him being okay with showing that side of himself to her again.
Right.
And maybe a ring.
Maybe.
Put in a ring on it.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
I think we're also going to probably, wasn't Lonnie, the man who played him, he's going to be his security guard for a few episodes?
Yeah,
as well?
Terry Crews.
So he's going to have to play a huge role in Will's developments, and possibly with Mackenzie. I think we'll also see Don make a play for Maggie like never before. I think it'll be sad for me, because I think he'll be more human. I'm very, for Jim, and that'll be an interesting struggle. And then, did we see the roommate Lisa.
We did see her.
So she's still in the picture somehow with Jim.
Did we see her this episode?
In the
Oh,
preview
no,
for
I was like, I
this.
don't remember her.
No, the preview.
Oh, of course. Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
she's-
It was a brief cameo, so I'm not sure how much that's going to mess up with that whole. It was a triangle, now it's a square.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
So we see how that goes. Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe, too, it might be a nice little twist if the therapy sessions actually help Will just get over Mackenzie. And then maybe that kind of dulls it out for a little while.
Oh.
I mean, it could be the different way to go. I mean,
If you
I
want the
don't
show
know.
to last, you can't get them together
Yeah.
at the end of the
You
first
get them
season.
together, then break them apart, then get them together, and break
It's
them
going to be moonlighting.
Yes, yeah, hopefully it'll go on and on, but maybe he'll get over a lot of things, and maybe as you thought before, maybe he and Sloan might have a little something going on,
Ooh.
I don't know.
Forget about brother and sister. No more brother and sister.
I think he's gonna get over that protective
she's
thing.
too hot to be
yeah.
a sister.
Yeah. Well,
I
thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, and thank you for
you,
joining
guys.
us today.
Nice to hang out with the K's.
Yes.
With the K's.
You can find us on Twitter at AfterBuzz TV, and you can follow me at Kellie with an IE079.
And you can find me at the fan FAN2TOCSE.
And I'm at Kendra Kabasele. It's KendraKabasele.
And I'm at Alicia_Minshew or AliciaMinshew.com. Yeah.
And don't forget to download us on iTunes tomorrow if you weren't able to catch the whole thing live. And we'll also be up on YouTube, and we'll be sure to tweet out all the links and everything. And thanks again for joining us. We'll see you guys next week.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
See you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.